The morning sun felt warm on my face as I sat on that old wooden bench in Red Lodge. My hands, all weathered and spotted from 83 years of living, rested on my knees. I come here most days. The park's quiet, lets me think. I was watching a couple of chipmunks chasing each other around the base of a pine tree when the shouting started. My eyes, still sharp despite the years, shifted over. Two men, maybe in their 40s, were squared off near the parking lot. One of them was Clint. I'd seen him around town. A menacing sort, with tattoos crawling up his neck like dark ivy. He was always leaning too close, talking too loud. The other fellow, I didn't know, but his voice was pleading. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone. It was the tone of a man who knew he was in over his head. It happened fast. Clint's hand shot out, a hard shove to the chest. The man stumbled back, his boots slipping on the gravel. He went down hard. There was a sickening thunk as the back of his head met a jagged rock poking up from the earth. He didn't move after that, just lay there, still. My own breath caught in my throat, but I didn't move. Learned a long time ago that sometimes staying still is the wisest thing you can do. Clint didn't panic. He was cold, efficient. He looked around, but he never saw me. I was just part of the scenery, another old man on a bench. He grabbed the man under the arms, dragged him across the dirt like a sack of feed, and heaved him into the bed of a beat-up black pickup truck. A minute later, the engine roared to life, and he sped away, kicking up a cloud of dust. The park was silent again. The chipmunks were gone. I just sat there, my fingers absently finding the carved bear claw necklace I always wear under my shirt. It feels solid, real, a reminder of a different life. I watched the empty space where the truck had been. I noted the make, the color, the busted tail light on the driver's side. I memorized the pattern of the tattoos on Clint's knuckles as he'd gripped that man's jacket. Every detail. I may be old, but some things you don't forget. You just store them away, quiet-like, and wait. The morning sun feels warm on my face as I settle onto my favorite bench outside the old general store. This spot, worn smooth by 40 years of my own sitting, is my front row seat to the whole town. My hands, gnarled and scarred from a lifetime in the Montana backcountry, are busy. A piece of seasoned hickory rests in my palm, and my knife peels away tiny curls of wood, slowly revealing the shape of a bear's claw. It's for a necklace, like the one I wear under my flannel shirt. A talisman from my guiding days. Retirement isn't so bad. The silence in my cabin since Mary passed is heavy, but out here, there's a different kind of quiet. It's an observant quiet. 40 years of tracking wolves, elk, and grizzlies didn't just teach me to follow prints. They taught me to read patterns, to sense the subtle shift in the wind that means something's out of place. And something's been out of place for months now. His name is Clint, a newcomer. He drives a truck too shiny for our gravel roads and wears a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I watch him now, coming out of the bank, shaking the manager's hand a little too firmly. I've seen this pattern before. Old man Henderson sold his south pasture to Clint back in the spring. Then it was the Miller family's timber lot last month. Always cash deals, always quiet, always just after some piece of bad luck befell the owners, a surprise tax lien, a sudden illness in the family. I pause my carving, my thumb testing the edge of the wooden claw. It's not evidence, not the kind the sheriff would care about. It's a tracker's evidence. The pattern of purchase, the type of land, all remote parcels, all bordering the protected state forest. It's the behavior. Clint moves through our town like he's assessing prey, not putting down roots. My ally in all this is Cody, the young postmaster. He's got a good heart and sees more than people think from behind his counter. Just last week, he mentioned offhand how Clint gets more official-looking mail from out of state than anyone else. "Lawyer stuff, maybe," Cody had said with a shrug. But I heard the question in his voice. I finish the rough shape of the claw and slip it into my pocket with the others. The real carved bear claw necklace against my chest feels heavy. It reminds me of a truth the wilderness teaches you. Predators always circle before they strike. They test the edges, look for weakness. Clint is circling our town, buying up the edges. I don't know what he's hunting for yet, but a man doesn't spend 40 years learning to read the forest just to forget how to read a man. I watch him drive away in that polished truck, kicking up dust, and I know his kind. The quiet is about to break. I drove straight to the sheriff's office, my hands still shaking on the wheel. The carved bear claw of my necklace felt heavy against my chest, a cold, hard reminder of what I'd just seen. I didn't even bother to knock. I just pushed through the door into the quiet station. My friend Cody looked up from his paperwork, his easy smile fading the second he saw my face. "Wyatt, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I said, my voice tight. I planted my hands on his desk. "I just saw Clint bury a body out at the old Miller quarry." Cody's chair creaked as he leaned back, his sheriff's badge catching the light. He let out a long, slow breath. "Clint? Clint Dawson? Wyatt, come on. That man just wrote a check for the new community center. He's at every Rotary breakfast." "I know what I saw." The words burst out of me. I forced myself to slow down, to give him the details, just the facts. "It was his truck, Cody. A black Ford F-150, license plate Oklahoma, Charlie Lima 843. I was up on the ridge watching through my binoculars. He dragged something wrapped in a blue tarp out of the bed and rolled it into that sinkhole near the east edge." I could see the doubt hardening in Cody's eyes, so I kept going. When he leaned over, his sleeve rode up. He's got a tattoo on his right forearm, a rattlesnake coiled and ready to strike. And his voice, when he was talking to himself, muttering, it was that weird mix. Not full Texas drawl, not quite Oklahoma twang. That blended accent he's got. Cody rubbed his forehead. "A tattoo and an accent? Wyatt, that's not exactly concrete evidence of murder. That's a man possibly disposing of some old construction debris on his own leased land." It was a body, Cody. The memory of that tarp hitting the rocks with a sickening soft thud turned my stomach. The way it landed. It wasn't debris. He killed someone. I witnessed a murder. My friend stood up, coming around the desk to put a hand on my shoulder. It was supposed to be comforting, but it felt like a dismissal. "Listen to me. Clint Dawson is a pillar here. He employs half the town. What you're alleging, it would tear this community apart, without more than what you think you saw from a ridge a quarter-mile away." I shrugged his hand off, my fingers finding the bear claw necklace again, gripping it like an anchor. "You think I'm imagining this? I came to you because you're the sheriff and because you're my friend. I need you to believe me." Cody's expression was pained, caught between duty and disbelief. "I believe you think you saw something. But precise details of a truck and a tattoo aren't enough. I can't go harassing a man like Clint on a hunch even from you." He sighed, the sound heavy with finality. "I'm sorry, Wyatt." The skepticism in the room was a physical wall. I'd brought him the truth, and he was choosing to see a respected businessman, not the monster I'd watched in the quarry. I knew right then I was on my own. The knock on my cabin door was too heavy to be Cody. My heart started thumping before I even saw his face through the frosted glass. I opened it, and there he was. Clint, standing on my porch like a bad storm rolling in. He had that same thin smile that never touched his eyes. "Wyatt," he said, his voice all fake warmth. "Heard you've been having some conversations. Mind if I come in? I'm concerned." I didn't want to let him in, but not letting him in felt more dangerous. I stepped back and he brushed past me, his eyes scanning my small living room like he was pricing the furniture. "Heard a nasty rumor," he started, not even sitting down. He just stood in the middle of the room, making it feel small. "Someone's been saying I had something to do with that old hermit's disappearance. Terrible thing, false accusations. They spread like a sickness." I kept my mouth shut, my back against the wall near the fireplace. My old hunting rifle was in the other room. It might as well have been in another state. Clint took a slow step closer. "See, in a community like ours, we look out for each other. But sometimes people who stir up trouble, they find it, especially folks living way out here." He let that hang in the air, his gaze locked on mine. "Elderly folks, living all alone. Accidents happen, fires start, bears get brave. It's a dangerous world." The threat was as clear as ice. He was talking about me, my age, my isolation. It was a promise. I was about to tell him to get out when the light from my window caught something around his neck. He'd shifted, and his jacket collar fell open slightly. There, on a leather cord, was a carved bear claw. My breath caught. Old man Marley's necklace. He was never without it. Clint must have seen my eyes fix on it, because his hand came up, almost casually, and tucked it back inside his shirt. But it was too late. I'd seen it. That wasn't just any trinket. It was hand-carved, unique, with a chip missing from the third claw. I'd seen it 100 times when Marley would come by to trade jerky for my preserves. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. Clint hadn't just made a man disappear. He'd robbed him, taken a trophy. He was wearing a dead man's favorite possession like it was a prize. All the fear in my chest hardened into a cold, certain dread. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was proof, hanging right there against his throat. He saw the change in my face. The moment my fear turned into something else, his fake concern vanished. "Think on what I said, Wyatt," he muttered, all pretense gone. "Be smart." He left then, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there, listening to his truck engine fade down the mountain road, my eyes fixed on the space where that carved bear claw had been. He'd come to scare me silent. Instead, he'd shown me the truth. And now I knew exactly what I was up against. The sun was beating down on the back of my neck, but the chill I felt was bone deep. Cody stood beside me, his sheriff's hat pulled low, his expression a mix of professional duty and deep personal reluctance. He'd finally agreed to look, but I could see the doubt in the set of his jaw. "The truck's a dead end, Wyatt," he said, his voice flat. He'd shown me the file. The vehicle I'd seen Clint's men driving was registered to a numbered company, a ghost on paper. And the victim, he was a surveyor, just a guy mapping parcel lines. Clint had been trying to buy up all the land along that ridge. He was in the way, I said, the words tasting like ash. It wasn't just random brutality. It was a business calculation. That made it worse. Cody sighed, scanning the tree line. No body, no crime. That's what the DA will say. Then let's find where the crime was, I insisted, my fingers instinctively going to the carved bear claw at my throat. It felt like the only solid, true thing left. They moved him, but they didn't start clean. I led him away from the gravel road, into the thicker brush where the pine needles were thick and soft. Cody followed, his boots crunching quietly. This was my language, the bent branch, the scuff in the moss, the story the land tells when it's been wounded. Here, I pointed to a patch of disturbed earth, nearly invisible unless you knew to look for the pattern. They dragged him from the truck. See how the drag marks are deep, then shallow? He was fighting. I moved further, my eyes tracing the invisible path. They stopped here. This is where they left him, just for a little while. See the compaction? The way the needles are matted, not scattered. I knelt, and after a moment Cody did too. I showed him the broken fern, the single faint impression in the soft soil that could have been a heel. They loaded him up again here. Different drag marks, heavier, straight. They used a tarp or a blanket the second time. Cody was silent for a long minute, just staring at the ground I'd read for him. He wasn't seeing dirt and leaves anymore. He was seeing the violence, the cover-up. When he looked up at me, the reluctance in his eyes had been replaced by a cold, hard anger. "A surveyor," he repeated quietly, "just doing his job." I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. Clint thinks this is his land, that he can remove anything or anyone from it. The truck's a ghost, the company's a shell. But this? I gestured to the silent story at our feet. This is real. You can't shell company away the truth of dragged earth, Cody. He nodded, finally, a sharp, decisive motion. He pulled out his notebook and started writing, not just taking notes, but sketching the scene. He was building a case now, not just humoring an old friend. The body was gone, vanished into Clint's vast, dark machine. But for the first time, we had a map of the evil that had taken it. And it started right here, in the quiet of the pines. The air in the Red Lodge Community Hall was thick with the smell of old wood and cheap coffee, and a buzzing excitement I hadn't felt in this town for decades. I sat in the back, my carved bear claw necklace a familiar heavy weight against my chest as Clint took the podium. He looked every inch the concerned citizen in his crisp flannel. "Friends, neighbors," he began, his voice smooth as oil. "For years, we've watched our home struggle. Our kids leave, our dreams fade, but I see a future." He unveiled glossy renderings of a massive mountain resort, condos where the old pine grove stood, a luxury spa where the creek ran wild. This isn't just development. It's salvation, jobs, prosperity, a new dawn for Red Lodge. The room erupted. People clapped, cheered. Some even had tears in their eyes. It was a standing ovation. Clint beamed, accepting the adoration like a king. And my blood went cold. He was selling my friend's grave, and they were buying it with a smile. I couldn't stay in my seat. The chair legs screeched against the floorboards as I stood. The cheering died, every head turning to me. "That's a pretty picture, Clint," I said, my voice rough but clear. "Real pretty. Paints right over the blood, doesn't it? A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Clint's smile tightened. Now, Wyatt, we all respect your years here, but this is about the future. The future? I barked a laugh, stepping into the aisle. My hand went to the bare claw at my throat. This is about the past you buried, this resort of yours. It's going right over the spot where you killed Eli Brewer for his land claim 25 years ago. I saw the necklace he always wore, the twin to this one, caught in the rocks by the creek the next day. You're not a savior. You're a murderer covering his tracks with concrete. The silence that followed was absolute. Then it shattered. Oh, for God's sake, Wyatt! Old Man Higgins shouted. Not this again! A woman cried. The room turned into a wall of noise, but it wasn't aimed at Clint. It was aimed at me. Their faces, moments ago full of hope, were now twisted with pity and anger. Senile old fool! Trying to drag us back with your ghosts. Stop standing in the way of progress. I stood there, battered by their words. Then I felt a hand on my arm. It was Cody, my own nephew, his face pale and strained. Uncle Wyatt, he whispered, pulling me gently but firmly toward the door. You have to stop, please, for your own safety. Look at them. They won't listen. They just want what he's promising. I let him guide me out, the roar of the town's betrayal following us into the cold night. I'd spoken the truth, and it made me their enemy. The claw against my skin felt like the only real thing left. All right, so I'm Wyatt, and I'm sitting here in my apartment surrounded by notebooks and a laptop that's about to overheat. The confrontation with Clint is burned into my brain. The smug look, the way he talked. I know he did it. Cody believes me, but belief isn't proof. A jury needs something they can hold in their hands. I keep replaying Clint's voice in my head. It's not just a regular Texas drawl. It's got this specific, almost musical rhythm to it, with certain words flattened out. I remember reading once that accents can be like fingerprints, especially if they're formed in isolated environments. Where would you pick up a pattern like that and have it stick for life? I dive into a deep, weird hole of linguistic research. I'm listening to audio samples from all over Texas, comparing vowel shifts and intonations. It's hours of work. My eyes are blurry. But then I find it. A documentary about a specific state penitentiary in West Texas. An ex-inmate is being interviewed, and the way he says right and time, it's a perfect match for Clint. It's not just a regional accent. It's an institutional one, formed in the yard of that particular prison. I cross-reference with what little public record I can find on Clint's lost years. The timelines fit. This is where he was. I document everything, saving audio clips and linking them to timestamps in my notes. But that's just part of it. It connects him to a place, not to the crime. I need to tie him to her, the necklace, the carved bear claw. Remembering the unique, almost rough-hewn style of the pendant, I start searching for local artisans who work with bone and antler. It's a niche community. After dozens of dead-end calls, I find a craftsman named Eli, working out of a studio in Marfa. I send him a carefully cropped photo of the necklace from an old social media post of the victims. When he calls back, his voice is somber. I remember that piece, he says. Made it for a sweet young woman. Said it was for her own protection. Paid in cash. My heart is hammering. I drive out to see him the next day. He's a quiet man, surrounded by his work. He shows me his ledger, a simple, handwritten book. There's the entry, the date, a description of the bear claw pendant, and the victim's name. He didn't know her, but he remembered her. "Would you be willing to sign a statement?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "To swear to this?" He looks at the ledger, then at me, and nods slowly. "She deserves that much." I have a notary meet us there. As Eli signs the sworn affidavit, stating he created that one-of-a-kind necklace for the victim, I feel the first solid piece of the puzzle click into place. It's not just my word anymore. It's a voice from a prison yard and a signature on a page. Clint has no idea what's coming. The town square was packed, buzzing with that fake, polite energy that always comes with Clint's generosity. He was on the makeshift stage, smiling that empty smile, talking about progress and community. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs. This was it. I looked at Cody, standing off to the side of the crowd. He gave me a single, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't enthusiastic. It was heavy, burdened with the weight of what we were about to do. But it was enough. I didn't walk up to the stage. I walked through the crowd, and people just naturally parted, the chatter dying around me. Clint's speech faltered as he saw me coming. "Wyatt, come to join the celebration?" he boomed, but his eyes were cold. "I came for the truth," I said, my voice louder and steadier than I felt. I turned to face our neighbors, our friends. "Most of you know a man was killed out near the old ridge 20 years ago, a drifter. The case went cold." I saw the confusion, the discomfort. Clint's smile was frozen. "This is a celebration, son, not the time for ghost stories." "It's the perfect time," I said, "because the man who did it is here, right now." I pointed straight at Clint. The crowd gasped. You all know his voice, that careful, polished way he talks. But I had an expert listen. That accent isn't from here. It's from a specific part of Texas. The part that's home to a state prison where a man named Clyde Hicks was locked up for armed robbery until just before that murder. Murmurs rippled through the square. Clint scoffed. "A speech analyst? That's your evidence? This is slander." "It's a piece," I said. I held up my phone, showing a picture of the carved bear claw necklace from the old case file. The victim was found with this missing. A unique piece, carved by a jeweler in Durango. That same jeweler is ready to testify he sold an identical piece to a man matching your description, Clint, just a week before the murder. Cash. I could see the blood draining from Clint's face. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. "But my evidence isn't just paper and pictures," I said, locking eyes with him. "It's memory. I was just a kid, but I saw the car that night. A dark sedan, with a deep scratch on the passenger door from a mesquite branch. I saw a man of your build come back to it, wiping his hands on his pants. And I remember the sequence, the argument by the cliff, the push, the way the victim grabbed for anything as he fell and tore that necklace right from the killer's neck." I took a step closer to the stage. "So I'll ask you the question this town deserves an answer to, Clint. If you're just a simple businessman, if you're the innocent man you pretend to be, how did the victim's one-of-a-kind carved bear claw necklace end up in your possession?" The silence that followed was absolute. All eyes were on Clint. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The mask had finally, completely, slipped. The air in that town hall was so thick with tension, you could have carved it. I was pointing right at Clint, my voice raw from telling them everything. The nightmare, the claw marks, the feeling of cold earth. He just stood there, smug, until I described the exact spot on his ribs. That's when he broke. A wild, panicked look flashed in his eyes, and he lunged at me. "You're a liar!" he roared. Tables screeched as we crashed into them, a tangle of fury and desperation. All I could think was, he's proving me right. Cody was shouting, people were screaming, but it was just me and Clint wrestling on the dusty floorboards. I grabbed at his shirt, just trying to push him off. The fabric, old and thin, gave way with a sickening rip. And there they were, fresh, angry, red. 4 parallel scratches raked right across his lower ribs, exactly where I'd seen them in my dream. The exact marks you'd get from hauling something heavy and fighting back. The struggle stopped. Clint froze on top of me, his face draining of all color as he realized what was exposed. A dead silence fell over the room. Every single person saw it. The proof was written on his skin. I shoved him off, gasping. "You see?" I yelled, my voice cracking. "You all see it!" The spell broke. The crowd erupted, not in violence, but in a horrified, understanding murmur. The doubt in their eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, collective glare directed at Clint. He scrambled back, clutching his torn shirt, but it was too late. The truth was out. Cody moved in, his sheriff's badge catching the light. His face was all grim business now. "Clint Miller," he said, his voice low and steady, cutting through the noise. "You're under arrest." He didn't need to fight him. Clint just deflated, all the fight gone out of him, as Cody took his arms and put him in cuffs. The sight of those scratches had broken him more than any punch could. They found Sarah Jenkins 2 days later, right where I said she'd be, buried in a shallow grave on a patch of scrubland out near the old creek bend. Land records showed Clint had quietly bought that parcel just the month before. He'd been planning it. My dream hadn't just shown me the past. It had shown me his future plan, too. They led Clint away, and I just stood there, my hands still trembling. The carved bear claw felt warm against my chest, not a curse anymore, but a quiet, heavy weight. It was over. The ghost could rest. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The gavel's echo had finally faded. Months after that night on the ridge, a jury in the county seat convicted Clint on a whole list of charges: arson, assault, attempted coercion. My testimony, shaky voice and all, seemed to have tipped the scales. The judge called it the account of a reliable witness. "I guess after 70-odd years, your word either means nothing or it means everything." With Clint gone, his whole slick development deal fell apart like rotten timber. The investors vanished, the surveyors' flags were pulled up, and the quiet returned to our side of the mountain. It was over. This afternoon, I'm back on my bench outside the library, a block of pine in my hands, and my old knife moving through it by feel. The familiar rhythm is a comfort. A few yards away, some kids are chasing each other around the small grassy patch, their laughter mixing with the sound of my blade scraping wood. I don't carve anything in particular now, just shapes. Let the wood decide. Mrs. Henderson from the post office walks by, not with that tight, pitying smile she used to have, but with a genuine nod. "Afternoon, Wyatt." Old man Miller actually stops, claps a hand on my shoulder, and says, "Town's lucky to have you." It's not the words so much as the look in his eyes. They don't see a senile old man talking to the wind anymore. They see, well, I don't know what they see. But it's different. My hand slips into my pocket, my fingers finding the smooth, familiar curves of the carved bear claw necklace. I don't take it out. I just hold it, a solid touchstone. Cody was right. Some things you have to keep close. A slight, quiet smile touches my face. The mountains taught me to see what others miss. The subtle path, the hidden track, the true heart of a man beneath a smooth talk. Some lessons, carved into you by wind and time and hard choices, they never fade. They just settle in, deep and permanent, like the rings in an old growth tree. The children's laughter rings out again, a clean, bright sound against the enduring silence of the peaks. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet feels just right.